What's going on with Adobe today? That company's stock taking a hit after the Wall Street numbers really weren't met. And to find out why, let's ask an analyst who tracks Adobe, Walter Pritchard of Citigroup, and he joins us this morning from San Francisco. Walter, explain to us what happened with Adobe in these results.
Sure. I think what happened is you had an expectation that the quarter would be a bit better than it was. You had the company 3 months ago come out and talk about Japan being potentially a headwind for them. Japan actually turned out great. I think congrats to them in terms of executing well in Japan. But outside of Japan, the business just wasn't as strong as I think some expected. And you're seeing that this morning in the stock. And
one of the big issues with them right now is this battle with Apple. Steve Jobs saying, no, we're not interested in Flash for the iPhone or the iPad. And Adobe has obviously had to respond. How would you rank their response or rate their response?
Sure. I think they look at the issue as a lot bigger than that, and really they're the company that's got the best tools for creating content on the web and in print and traditional media. And if there's more content produced, whether it's consumed on an iPad, an iPhone, an Android phone, a PC, whatever it may be, Adobe stands to be the beneficiary of that. So I think they've focused on the bigger issue here, which is there's more content, there's more devices, and they're sort of what sits in between that. But clearly on that issue you highlight specifically, they've had some trouble and some sort of war of the words in the press. But we think the issue is quite a bit bigger than that.
Walter, it's Dominic here. Let's drill down into that a little bit more about the Apple-Adobe relationship here. If it's going to be a real issue for Adobe here or for Apple, how much could it mean to Adobe's bottom line if something can be met, or if Apple does kind of sign on and everything gets hunky-dory, does everything get better for Adobe? Does it mean more pennies to their bottom line in terms of their earnings per share?
Yeah, sure. We think Flash is somewhere between 6 and 7% of the company's revenue. We think it's sort of the third or fourth most important application that they sell. We think buyers basically buy the software primarily for reasons other than Flash. They use tools like Dreamweaver and Photoshop to create content primarily. Flash is if you will, PowerPoint in the Microsoft Office suite. It's something that's kind of a secondary application. And we just don't think it's that important. I think at the end of the day, HTML and other formats of content will be consumed on iPhones and iPads, and that's really Adobe's all about all sorts of types of content, and Flash is just one piece of that.
Walter, in the past, some people have talked about Adobe as a company that somebody else might want to buy. For the longest time, it was Microsoft. What's your view on that right now?
We don't put it that high on our list in terms of companies in the software space that we think are potentially takeouts. We think there's a couple potential suitors there, but I think one, the company is a little bit larger than most of the things we think are likely acquisition targets, and two, the business is pretty diversified. They're in a lot of different areas, and I think it's not necessarily pure play on one thing, and sometimes you see the takeouts happen in areas where a buyer is looking to buy one thing specifically.
Walter, on a lighter note, the CEO of Adobe got top marks online recently in a video where he was, in a joking way, preparing for a speaking engagement at the All Things D conference. We want to play that first.
Nice. Boom. Shantanu. Can he teleport? Shantanu. Can he talk to animals? Shanta who? What do they say? Shanta new.
All right. With guys like you, Adobe has to be clean on what its expectations are. But how important is it for CEOs to be able to poke fun at themselves?
I think it's probably something investors don't spend a lot of time looking at. I think at the end of the day, it's does a company have a strategic vision, and that vision set by the CEO. And I think Adobe's been pretty consistent there, and that falls on the shoulders of Shantanu.
Well, speaking of the CEO here, when you look at the vision down the line there, Adobe obviously in a very peculiar spot there, a hub of so many apps here. Is the future bright for them looking forward here? Can they expand their product offering, or is it enough just to be in things like Dreamweaver and Flash?
I think what it really comes down to is there's lots of content being created, and there's lots of devices to consume that content, and they need to be in front of both of those. And so, if there's demand for a certain type of content to be produced, they need to have a tool that does that. As far as we see today, they've got those tools. On the device side, I think that's a bit more of an open question. The mobile market, for example, is really early, phones and tablets, and I think the way that market plays out will sort of determine how successful Adobe is and how they execute on that opportunity. But so far from what we've seen, I mean, this is a company that kind of sits in between both of those and meets the market needs in both those areas. But I think on the device side, that side of the market is clearly changing faster, and that's an area that Adobe needs to probably work hard to continue to stay relevant there.
All right. Thanks a lot, Walter. Walter Pritchard of Citigroup.
No problem.